You didn't lose your attention, it was stolen from you. I'm not usually one who likes to make definitive statements like this, but in this case, I think it is true. And I probably don't have to really explain that to you. This has been probably talked about quite a bit. Johann Hari in the book Stolen Focus writes this. He says, "You can try having self control, but there are 1,000 engineers on the other side of the screen working against you. Our devices, our apps, so much of what we engage with on a day to day basis has been tuned and refined and refactored to hold your attention, to get your attention, and then hold your attention." So I want to give you today 7.5 activities to help you try to start regaining your focus, to try to start stealing your attention back. Before I get into these activities, let me talk about why attention might be so important. Maybe you've already put words to this. Maybe you don't need me to explain it to you. But in short, the simplest way I can say this is having attention is being in attendance to your own life. The word attention, the word attendance, they come from the same idea that you want to be present to the things in your life that matter to you, the people in your life that matter to you, the activities in your life that you really care about, the projects in your life that you really want to work on. You want to have your attention. You want to have your focus so that you can be present to what matters to you. So let's talk about those 7.5 activities. I'm going to give you actually 7 activities, and I'll talk about the half here in a second. And I promise you that not all of these are easy. In fact, I'm going to start with the hardest ones. I'm going to work my way towards the quote unquote easiest ones. But getting your attention back is kind of like an exercise. It's kind of like if you want to build muscle, you have to do exercises that give you resistance. There will be a little bit of work to try to focus and get your attention back, going counter to what all of those engineers are trying to do to you. Now, let me talk about that half practice. And I recognize this is a little self serving, but the half practice I would suggest is watch to the end of the video. And so much of what we do as we watch these videos on YouTube is we click around and we make a decision in the first 30 seconds or 60 seconds. So many people have already clicked off this video, and that's fine. Maybe it's not for them, but I'd encourage you to watch to the end of this video to try to build that attention muscle a little bit more. There's nothing special there at the end. I'm not going to tease you or surprise you with anything. So let's talk about the first activity I would say today, which is meditation. Now, you might already be going, okay, this is hard. I told you the hard ones are going to be first. And I can speak firsthand that meditation is a hard practice. Meditation can take many forms. It can be some kind of contemplative prayer if you're a person of faith. It can be a matter of just sitting still and being present to what is happening in your body, or even just counting your breaths. The idea is to slow your mind. And there is research about how the practice of meditation does help you gain some of your attention back. But meditation, I would name as the hardest one, but also perhaps the most helpful one based on the research and based on the nature of the practice itself. If you'd like to know how to get started with meditation, I'd suggest apps. We're talking about apps that are trying to steal our attention, but there are good apps out there that you can search for. These are not sponsored or anything like this, but I'm aware of both Headspace, which has been really helpful for me, and an app called Calm. And I'm sure that there are others that can help you get started. The next one I would recommend to you is simply the practice or the activity of reflection. And whereas meditation is trying to be more single in focus on your breath or something like that, I would consider reflection to be more a practice of considering what is happening in your life, stepping back to get a bigger picture of what is happening in your life, or just slowing down to think about what happened yesterday or the day before. Perhaps the easiest way to do reflection is just to start journaling. Just sit down and write in a journal every day. I've done a number of videos already about journaling, or I've also published an email course that you can find at reflectivecourse.com that can help you get set up with a simple practice of daily reflection in a small little handwritten journal. Just a simple little 15-minute stand up with yourself to pay attention to what is going on in your life, to set aside a little bit of time to be reflective and to be present, to attend to your life. The next practice, this one is probably my favorite on the list if I'm going to speak to my personal bias, but the next practice, the next activity is reading. And when I'm talking about reading, I'm talking about long form reading. I'm talking about longer articles. Ideally, I'm talking about books. It doesn't really matter if you're reading digitally, if you're reading on paper. The idea of reading and reading in long form is you put your brain on a pathway going in the same direction for a longer amount of time towards one specific topic. And that enhances and then builds and increases your ability for longer term thinking or longer form thinking, for more complexity, for more nuance of understanding. So, reading. So, we've talked about meditation, hard one. Reflection can be a hard one. Reading can be a hard one. All of them are worth the time. They're going to start to get a little bit easier, but all of these can be challenging. The next one I would say is simply limit. And you say, John, how is limit an activity? Well, the idea of limit, what I mean is reduce the inputs, limit what is available to you at given times. I'm not saying that you have to uninstall all the social media. You might find that helpful, but I'm not saying you have to do that. But can you put boundaries around when you are going to engage with it? There's a book written several years ago called 24/6. It talks about the idea of a tech Shabbat, the idea of no technology, no screens on Saturdays, just for the benefit of being more present. Could you do something like that? For me, I leave my phone over there on my desk, and that's where it charges at night. And I don't engage with my phone for the first couple hours of my day because I don't need to, and I don't want to see what's on there. So it gives me a little bit of time. That's when I do my reading. That's when I do my contemplative practice because I haven't yet been pulled in by all the things that are happening on my phone, all the notifications that are trying to get my attention. Now, sure, of course, I do have a watch. If my family needs to get a hold of me, if there's something going on, um, I'm not totally isolated from the world, but I'm putting limitations on what kind of ideas, what kind of notifications have access to me. And so I'd encourage you to think the same. What does it look like when you're at home to only leave your phone in a certain room of the house, and that's the only place that you look at it? What does it look like for you to um, put some of the apps on your phone that limit access to certain apps at certain times? Uh, think about ways that you can limit what you have availability to so that you can be more present and more focused to the things that you care about, whether at home or at work or other places. The next activity, and again, these are broad activities, but the next one I would say is grapple. That's right. Grapple. And what I mean by that, if you imagine grapple, you probably picture like the idea of grabbing a hold of something, right? It's some kind of tangible physical activity that requires enough focus from you that your mind and your attention stay trained on what is happening with your body. I would even argue that you could make the case that an activity as simple as taking a walk every day without your phone can be an activity of grapple where you're just walking, your body is in this pattern of repetition, and your mind can just linger or wander wherever it wants to go to be attentive, to be present to what is happening in your life. It can be a good practice of reflection, but this could also be if you're doing some kind of activity like woodworking, if you're gardening, if you are painting, any kind of activity like that where your whole body is engaged with what is happening in your mind can be a helpful activity to begin to pull your attention back to yourself and disengage. So that fourth activity, no, are we on the fifth? We're on the fifth activity. That fifth activity is grapple, be tangibly, physically engaged in something that requires all of your attention. The sixth activity, again, broad categories that I'm going to name here, is immerse. And when I say immerse, I mean engage in something that takes up so much of your attention, or at least allow yourself to give so much attention to something that you don't have to pick up your phone and check what else is going on. What is your favorite TV show? When you go to a movie theater, can you watch the entire movie without pulling out your phone? Can you watch a sporting event and be so focused on what's happening that you don't have to check to see what other people are saying about it? Can you play a video game that can be so engaging that you are solely focused on that? There is a little bit of research actually about video games. Now there's contradictory. There are different perspectives and there's research that goes different ways about the value of something like a video game when it comes to your attention. But it is a consideration that any kind of activity like this that can hold your interest enough that you can be focused on it can be something. And again, we're getting into the easier categories here, but can be something that can help you rebuild your attention. Now, one caveat about this one, I would say, is it's a fine line between attention and addiction. And if you're doing one of these activities solely as a matter of escape, if you're binging a show, if you find yourself playing a video game for 7 hours, not purely for the joy of it, but also just as a matter of the dopamine hit that you get from that to escape the rigors of your life, that's probably no longer an activity that is helping you with attention. That doesn't mean it's a bad activity for you, but it just might not be as simple as I'm building my attention by playing this video game for 7 hours. There can be addictive qualities that are happening with those as well. And again, I'm not speaking as an expert on neuroscience. I'm mostly speaking from my own personal experience from time to time. And then the last one, which I would say should be the easiest and in some ways can be one of the most difficult, is Converse. Take time to sit and connect with another person, maybe uh, a partner in your life, a spouse, maybe a good friend, maybe one of your kids. Um, be present in conversation with someone else. When you sit with them, say, I'm going to leave my phone in my pocket. I'm going to leave my phone over here face down so that it's not distracted. Can we both agree to do that? You can really have good attention when you are engaged in a deep and thoughtful, mutually reciprocal conversation with another person where there's shared curiosity about one another, shared care for one another. I believe that this is what we are made to be as people who are in relationship with one another, whether you consider that from some kind of supernatural perspective or just how humans developed and evolved. We are made to live in connection with other people. And there is no better way to build your attention than to simply just give it to another person. So 7.5 activities, actually only 7. You can already check off the half box if you're still watching at this point. 7 activities: meditate, reflect, read, limit, grapple, immerse, and converse. Any of these 7 activities, which feels maybe a little challenging to you right now? You don't have to pick the hardest on the list, but what might be an activity you could be more intentional about? Not one that you're already doing and already doing well, but what could be an activity that might feel like this would be the most natural activity? Try it. See how it works. And then maybe work your way towards some of the harder ones. Your life is worth being present to. Your life is worth attending. So recapture your focus, recapture your attention to be present to it. I'd love to hear in the comments below if you have others that you think I missed, or if you think that you have other thoughts about any of these 7, or like I said, if you'd like to see a video that expands on any of these 7, leave a comment below. Thanks so much for watching. My name is John Chandler, and on this channel, I talk about practical wisdom for mindful living. And if you find conversations like this interesting or valuable, I'd be glad to have you along for the ride. Please please subscribe, and continue these conversations with me. Thanks so much for watching.